I did my first ultramarathon, which was from Christ's Hospital, so not far from Horsham, to Brighton. 31 miles, 50 kilometres. It was called Run to the Sea Brighton, organised by Ultraviolet. And now it's been just over a week, I think about nine days now. I've had a bit of a chance to reflect on the things that I've learned, and so I just wanted to share some of those. This might be useful for people who are thinking about doing an ultra, or maybe for those of you who've done an ultra already, you can see if there's things that you learned from your first ultra, which I have from mine as well. So the first thing that I wanted to kick off with was the thing I learned was not to get lost. I actually thought about this before, and I was trying my hardest not to get lost, but towards the end, and you don't see this in the video that I put together on my channel about this, but towards the end, 29 miles in, I actually managed to get lost. And the strange thing was, it was probably the part of the course that I know the most, because it was around Hove Park, which is somewhere I know pretty well, and it was the earlier parts of the course that I didn't know so well. But in my state of delirium and exhaustion, I went off the wrong way. In the end, it ended up probably adding on about maybe 7 or 8 minutes or so. It was about half a mile, so not too much in the scheme of things, but I remember at the time feeling really exhausted. But luckily enough, I saw someone who noticed my race number, which you can see just behind me there, and they saw that I was part of the Run to the Sea crew, and they pointed me back in the right direction, and I managed to get back on course and then move towards the finish. So that's the first thing that I learned. I mean, I don't know if I would have done it any differently, because I was in that state where I was very tired and probably not looking for signs. There probably was a sign, I just missed it. So I don't know if it would have made a difference thinking more about not getting lost, but that's certainly one of the things which I will remember for next time and try and pay a bit more attention to the signs. So that's the first thing. The second thing is about not overpacking. And this was something that I thought about before. And I would try to think to myself, okay, I don't want to take too much with me. And the thing that I ended up not needing in the end was as many snacks. So I'll show you what I actually came back with. So this is essentially an equivalent. So I had a different snack bar to this, but of a similar size. So this was basically what I came back with in my pack, which probably in the scheme of things isn't too much, but a couple of snack bars, a couple of Cliff blocks in there, and then a couple of gels. So I didn't need these in the end. Or couldn't stomach them. Towards the end of the race, my stomach was churning a bit and I didn't feel I could take anything else on. So in hindsight, I'd probably take slightly fewer of these. Maybe to have, it's better to have too much as opposed to too little when you're really wanting that energy towards the end of the run. But I think I probably wouldn't take quite as much. Maybe I could halve that and just have, a few extras for contingency there, but not be carrying extra weight in my backpack. So that's the second thing. The other thing which I learned but was kind of thinking about before was just choosing the right shoes. So it turned out that on the day that I ran the ultra, the weather was really, really good. It was really, maybe a little too hot, but there was no rain or anything like that. Underfoot, it wasn't muddy or churned up or anything like this. So in my head, I was toying with the idea of whether I should take road shoes or my trail shoes. And in the end, I went for my road shoes. And that was because with my trail shoes, they would cause me a little bit of trouble before. There was a particular nerve on my foot that was twinging slightly before I was going, and it would just so happen that my shoes that I would worn, my trail shoes, would push on that nerve a little bit. So they were just pushing down on this part here. Otherwise these are perfectly good shoes. These are my Asics Gel Venture 8. But it was just that there was this bit here when I tied up the laces rather quite tight, it would just push down just a little bit on this nerve twinge that I had. So in the end, I didn't go with my trail shoes, and I went with my road shoes instead. So Asics Gel Venture 7, Asics Gel Excite 7 rather, and they were really good, really comfy. They served me well for the solo marathon I did before, and in the end, that was a decision very well made. So the other thing relating to shoes that I learned was that blisters can be sneaky. And what I mean by that is sometimes you can reveal that you've got blisters at the end and not have known about them before. And I guess that could be adrenaline pumping through your body. It might not be the first thing you're thinking about, but I realized at the end that I had a couple of small blisters. They weren't serious, but I think it was just where my feet had really sweated in the heat. not to be too graphic about it, but they'd really sweated in the heat, and it just meant that my socks were rubbing a bit on my toes. I had one on my, how would you describe it? My toe next to my big toe, so that toe, and then one on the back of my left heel as well. So I had those towards the end. So that was my second lesson from my shoes, really, that blisters can be sneaky. The other thing I learned as well is that sometimes the thing that you struggle with is not the thing that you were thinking you were going to struggle with. So in the lead up to the ultra, I had some issues with my right knee, and I thought on the day that would be the thing, if anything, that would really give me the trouble. In the lead up to the ultra, so probably the 7 or 8 days before, I was ice packing my knee every night. I was doing elevation, trying to ensure that it was going to be okay, not doing too many hills in the lead up. And on the day, I wore a knee support as well. So right from the start, I wore this knee support. This is one I just got from Decathlon, actually. Tarmac, it says on it. But in the end, I felt a slight knee twinge about probably hour and a half in, something like that. But it didn't really cause me a problem. There were other things that caused me more of a problem, like feeling nauseous towards maybe 3.5 hour mark. Feeling like it was more difficult to breathe later on as well. So trying to get air in after some of those really tough hills in the second half. So actually the thing that I thought was going to cause me the problem wasn't in the end. And my knees were completely fine. My right one, which I had problems with, and the other one, it was, other things that were much more of a factor on the day. So the other thing that I learned from the ultra was that you might have to go through the wall several times in an ultra because of the sheer length of it, and because of the way that ultras are set up, often with hills, and they can be quite a pressure on the body. That can have an impact on your psychology as well. So I felt that there was at least 2 times when I questioned whether I'd be able to finish it and whether I should be carrying on. But often you push through those, and then you start to get into a rhythm again. And you think, no, actually, I can do this. So that was something that I had to contend with as I was doing it. So relating to that, if I was going to think about what could make it a bit easier next time, I think I would train more on hills. So it was a strange one, this ultra, because there was hardly any elevation in the first half. So for the first 15 miles or so, it was all really in the second half when you hit the South Downs. That was where there was a lot of elevation. So maybe got into a false sense of security with the first half. I thought, wow, I'm actually, getting some pace up here and doing pretty well. I mean, I didn't set off, ridiculously fast, like sprinting or anything like that, but maybe a little faster than I should have done considering the second half. But in order to deal better with that second half, I would certainly next time do more training on hills. I did a bit of that, but I only had 6 weeks really after I finished my marathon, and then rest of about 5 days. I think in the future I would try and leave more rest days in between an event and then leading up to a marathon, and then just trying to gently put the hills in my training here and there, and then building it up over time, because I didn't really have so much of a gentle increase in my training over my 6 weeks for the ultra. It was more kind of accelerated. So I'd certainly try to introduce them more gently next time, so that I'm just more accustomed to hills, more used to it, and can deal with the challenges that hills bring as well. So those are the things that I learned from my first ultra. I hope you found that useful. Let me know in the comments if you've done an ultra already, what you learned from that. And if you haven't, if you've got one planned, let me know which one you're thinking of doing. I'll post the video that I made of my first ultra just up here, and you can get a sense of what it was like on the day as well. Thanks for tuning in.